Burswick and welcome to my shed here in Derbyshire, and today I'm going to show you how to turn one of my pomanders. Okay, so I'm going to make one of my pomanders now, and I'm going to use a piece of this apple wood that I've been donated. And the problem with a lot of logs that you get for wood turning is that they're cut off with a chainsaw. They've been cut off not particularly paying attention to how square the end is, so it's difficult to turn or to drive this end. So you need to cut the log so that it will be square for the lathe, and that's what we're going to do first. So now, having cut the log so that it's square, and this stuff is pretty hard, so I believe it's apple. You see we've got a nice smooth surface here. The next thing we need to do now is to drill a hole with a Forstner bit here that's exactly the right size for my jaws and my chuck to get a grip of this thing. So that's what I'm going to do now. So this is a 48mm Forstner bit that I'm going to use to put a depression in the end of the log so that my lathe can get a grip of it. You'll see how it works. So here you can see the end of the log that I'm going to put the hole into, and you can see I've installed now my 48mm Forstner bit in the end of my drill, and I'm just going to approximate where I think the centre of this log is. Working particularly hard at that, I'm just letting the bit do the work. Now what I'm trying to do here is to make the depression in here be square to this surface, to be flat and square to this surface. Now I can see that it's fairly square by the fact that both of these surfaces are here are level with the surface of the wood, or getting level with the surface of the wood. So I'll carry on until I think I've got a good enough hole. So now we get to the lathe itself, and you can see here that I've got a fairly simple single pole lathe, but what I have done is I've added this motor to it, which allows me to do proper speed control. Now with this particular chuck, I've got a choice of 3 different sets of jaws that I can put on it, and these are the medium set, and it's these, the size of this one, it's fully closed, that I actually bought the Forstner bit to match. So let's mount this thing. So first of all, I'm just going to place it on the chuck, and I'm going to push it down. I can feel when it's flat in the base of it, it'll find its own point anyway, and I'm just going to wind this out now so that the jaws are expanding inside here to hold this in place. You can see that's got it. I'm also going to bring the tailstock up because this is quite eccentric. You can see it finds its own weight at the bottom here, and I'm going to bring the tailstock up here and put it in the centre so that it supports this end. Then I'm going to get really violent with this with an angle grinder, which we'll see in a second. So now you can see the setup with the tailstock in place. It's fairly eccentric still. You can see it finds its own weight point, and so what I need to do is get some of that eccentricity out of it. So I'm going to attack it with an angle grinder with a carving blade on it. Here's the carving blade. It's basically just a chainsaw type arrangement of teeth on a flat steel disc. Not very expensive, but I feel you do need one of these. So here we go. see from that it's quite violent, and you can see there's a nice split here, but hopefully that will all be gone by the time I'm done, because this is going to be the base. And I'm going to work my way back here, and you can see it's actually starting, even now, just to be a bit more balanced. A little bit of weight there, but it's starting to get a little bit more balanced. You can see I've hardly taken anything off here, taking quite a lot there. So again, I'll work my way right across this, and we'll get back to when we've done it. You can see there that I've reversed the direction of the cut. See, there's quite a good split in this actually now, I've taken all the bark off it, but hopefully we can still get something out of it. Sometimes these splits are quite nice in the finished article anyway, gives it a bit of character, and we'll see what we get on. Sometimes you have to abandon it, maybe it'll turn into something else, who knows. But you can see I've taken most of the bark off. You can see where it was a bit low, and I haven't quite got down to that yet, but I will do. You can see I've changed the direction of the rotation as well, and I use this in a slightly different way. Instead of using it vertically, I used it across. You can see it cuts a little bit better. And I'm really just grazing the surface of this. I'm not putting any pressure on it at all. And you can see that it does shift wood at an alarming rate. So you've got to be very careful with it. So let's get back into that. There we are, fairly round now, fairly balanced, and again, let's not worry about that for now, that'll come off. It's going to be quite a deep cut in the area here, and hopefully it'll take this out as well. And so, now I'm actually going to turn to some chisels and actually do some proper wood turning. So here we are now, all set up to do the first bit of actual turning, to start getting a bit of shape into this, square this end up. You see I've got a fairly crude gouge here, I've just sharpened it, it's nice and sharp. And I've just set the rest up, made sure it's nice and firm, made sure it's not catching, so we're ready to start. Make sure I'm going forward, and again I'll set my speed, go a bit faster now it's balanced. That's one of the advantages of using the carver. Get it up fairly fast and start turning. And you can tell you can hear it catching and missing, because this is where the bark is. You can see it's starting to turn up quite nicely. And I'll take this down till I get rid of this bark, and that will become the diameter of the base. And I'll set that up so I can turn the whole thing over later on and put it in the chuck from this end. Okay, so here's the thing that I'm aiming at, or something like this anyway. They all turn out differently, with skirts and with a ball on top which is hollow, quite thin, with holes in it. I like to put LED Christmas lights into these things. They look really nice, although as its name implies it's a pomander, potpourri in there with scented oils and so on. So basically this is a finished article of the job that we're just starting now. So here you can see that I'm taking it down. I'm getting out to the bottom a lot of these scratches. The shape of this is going to be like a pedestal here, as you'll see when we get through to it. And there's some nice staining in this, so it could be quite a nice piece. Hopefully I'll get rid of a lot of these cracks. Some of these big ones I won't, but we can live with those. So we can fill them with dark in wood filler. We can use some of the sawdust that's generating here to fill them. There's lots of ways we can deal with that. We can even leave them and use them as a feature, which you'll see as we build a ball at this end. You'll see that I'm going to have to do that anyway. So I'll get on with it, and you can just watch me do a little bit of removal of overburden, shall we say. So now you can see I've done a little bit more. It's only a crude shape at the moment. I'll refine this shape a lot more later on, as you'll see. Now I've got a lot of the bulk off the crude log. I need to turn a foot into the base here so that I can reverse this on the lathe and continue to form the ball at the far end. So my next operation is to turn a mechanism on here for me to hold in the lathe. Now, because this has got some splits in it, I'm going to turn a foot here that I can grip from the outside so that it will compress the wood rather than stress it apart. Okay, so the minimum inside diameter of the medium-sized jaws which I've got on at the moment is 3.4 centimeters. So I'm going to set this to 4, so it'll be quite close to that, and I'm just going to do a crude mark here that I'll be able to see once it's spinning, and I'll be able to mark that up. I'm taking it down quite gently. This is end grain turning here, so I've got to be quite gentle with it. Just using the bottom wing there to get a nice clean cut. So just getting close to the dovetail being finished now. I'm going to bring the speed up a little bit. The end of this is actually slightly concaved. I want the piece to rest on this outside rim here, not across a flat base. It makes it a little bit more stable. You can see also I've turned to this skew chisel. And I'm just going to make a nice smooth dovetail on the end here. So here you can see the dovetail, and it's a fairly clean one. I'm just going to do a little bit more on it just to clean it up and take this piece of waste away here. Just switch to a parting tool, and I'm just going to take this piece of waste away. Very careful here, of course, because this is supporting the piece. You can see the piece has become slightly eccentric now, so I'm not going to go back to this area because obviously it's not spinning true anymore. So let's get rid of that and let's just clean this off. Not really that worried, it's not going to be on the finished piece. As you can now see, the piece has been reversed. I've got a fairly good grip of it. It's turning fairly true. The advantage of being careful when you make the dovetail. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to form more of the ball on this end and do a little bit more work on here, but I don't want to weaken this too much at the moment because I've got to hollow this ball out, which again takes quite a bit of work, so I don't want to make this point too weak just yet. After this is hollow, then I can come back to this and thin it down and make it a lot more delicate. A little bit further on now, see I've started to form the top of the ball. I'm going to make that as round as I can so it does look like a ball. I'm not that worried if it doesn't turn into a perfect sphere, it'll still look nice. So you can see we're getting it into a much more spherical shape now. Just using a skew chisel here, just to refine the surface. Obviously I'll be using sandpaper later on to clean that up again.